Strymon Timeline has got to be one of the most iconic delay pedals, if not guitar pedals in general, of the last 15 years. Launched in 2011, and since then it's gone on to find its way into the hearts and pedal boards of thousands upon thousands of guitar players, mine included. And whilst it's no longer on my board, it sits on the shelf all the time, ready to be grabbed for some very specific things. The Timeline creates sounds that still hold up really well today, and in some cases does it better than still anything else that's on the market. There are 12 engines, or machines as I think Strymon refer to them as, and one of them is called Ice, and it is one of the most beautifully aesthetically pleasing delay sounds that I think I've ever played. It's incredibly inspiring. It's kind of like part shimmer, part luscious pad, part glitchy reversed sound, and it does it all in a way that never gets in the way of your main guitar sound. And the main part or thrust of this video really is to spend some time with the FM3 and see if I can get the delays and the effects in the FM3 to sound as close as I can to this Ice setting, my favorite preset in here. And I'll also try to do it on the HX Stomp as well. Ultimately for me, it's this Ice setting that would prevent me from ever parting ways or selling this thing. Maybe if I could get close enough with the FM3, that would be something that I'd reconsider. But I just think in general, it's such an iconic unit. It does, even its basic delay sounds, even the digital, the tape, the analogs are so pleasing still to the ear and to the touch and feel. I think it really is one of those pedals that is going to go down as, an all-time great. So before I walk you through the recreations that I've made on the FM3 and the HX Stomp, I thought I'd take you through the original sound on the Strymon unit itself, just to go into a little bit more detail about what I love about the sound, what I think's going on, and why it's so hard to replicate. I'm going to do that in the Strymon Nixie editing software that you can hook up to the Timeline. As you can see, it's utilizing the Ice engine, or I think Strymon refer to them as delay machine, so the Ice machine. And these are the settings, but I'll just take you through the sound itself. So if I just play this in just one note, one string, and hear what's going on. So you can hear there's a very prominent delay, like a main delay, that keeps ticking away, a sort of an ambient, slightly lo-fi kind of da 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 da. And then there's the octave reversed effect. And this really is apparent when you play single notes, like, and then it will sort of obviously cascade. One thing about the Strymon that I've not been able to quite get with the other units is the end cascading bubbling sound that will happens towards the end of the sound. But if I play a longer held chord though, you get slightly less of the bubbling and the super like chirpy kind of octave glitches and more of an ambient kind of pad. And what I love about this is the interplay between those two things. So if I'm playing like I was doing in the opening, this kind of waves inspired thing, and I kind of alternate between the more arpeggiated, shorter staccato bits, where you get this kind of like bubbly kind of reversed glitchiness. You also get this bed, this pad of like ambient, shimmery kind of sound underneath. I absolutely love that. It's so useful and versatile. And when I was playing that and doing this sort of dance kind of inspired stuff with the function band, it was an incredibly useful sound for getting a very modern, well, modern for the time. I guess it's a little bit dated now. Or it's a little bit, I guess it's, I don't know, do they still use this kind of thing in the worship kind of scene as well? But yeah, but 10 years ago, this was very, very cutting edge modern guitar sounds, I guess. Okay, so we're in FM3 Edit, and I've decided rather than do a full preset build from scratch, because I think the video is going to be quite long as it is doing both units in one video. I'm just going to do a walkthrough of the highlights and save a little bit of time. And if you want to download the presets, then you'll find them linked in the description below. This preset is called BB Timeline IC, and there are 3 scenes. So on scene 1, you're actually hearing the original timeline unit. So I've put the Strymon into the effects loop of the FM3 and set that up as scene 1. And then I can switch to scene 2, my FM3 recreation version 1. And then you're not hearing the physical timeline units. And then on scene 3, there's a variation of that sound. I can't quite make my mind up which one I prefer the most. I think maybe the one that's more accurate I don't actually like as much on the FM3. So that's why there's a couple of variations there. Just to save a bit of time, I'm not going to go through everything here now in this grid, but safe to say it's my usual kind of settings. So no gate on the input. I've got my usual compressor settings. My drive block here is using a King of Tone. The ODS 100 clean, which I use all the time. Can't go wrong with stock settings or tweak to taste. Then in the cab block, I'm just using my regular rumble settings. And then the path kind of splits off, and this is how I'm able to switch between the 2 different versions using the original timeline and the FM3. So along the top here, it's going through the effects loop. You can see it's coming through the effects loop. It goes out to the timeline hardware unit, back in, and then it comes down to this multiplexer here, which I'll talk about that in just a moment. And then also after the cab block, it's coming down to this other row of the grid here, and then it's going through the FM3 effects, which is recreating the timeline sound. That then also hits the multiplexer. Now the multiplexer block in the FM3 is a way of being able to just move between and switch between rows and on the grid. So on scene 1 in the multiplexer, it's only allowing through, it's still sending through both rows of the grid, but it's only going to allow through row 2. So this is row 2 here, and this is row 3. So when we're hearing the original timeline unit, it's the signal's still being sent down here, but it's not coming through. Only row 2 is coming through the multiplexer. That's on channel A of the multiplexer. If we go to channel B, it's set to row 3. So then it's on scene 2. I've got this B channel selected, so it's only then row 3 that's going to come through, so only the FM3 effects. That's going to allow me to be able to switch back and forth and test it in real time as to how close it is. Then that goes through to output 1, and then it's just normal into my interface. So if I play through on scene 1, you're going to hear the hardware timeline unit. Scene 2, it's going to switch to the FM3's effects. And then scene 3 is the variation on that. So we're focusing on everything after the cab block on row 3 of the grid here. So predominantly these 3 blocks, the FM3's effects. So I'm recreating this ice machine sound utilizing 3 main parts. We've got the main prominent quarter note delay, which is on this delay block. We've got the glitchy reverse, sort of splicey kind of sound, shifted thing, which is taken care of with the pitch. And then there's the more kind of icicle, shimmery pad bed sound, which is taken care of with the plex delay block. And those 3 things are combined and mixed together to sort of give us this emulated recreation of what the timeline is doing. So we'll go through these in order. So starting with the delay block, I'm using an ambient stereo type, and it's set to quarter note, feedback's up pretty high, 66, and everything else I think was fairly stock here. I didn't really change all that much. I've just got the mix set to 24 max and 6.6 min on the expression pedal. But mostly when I'm going through this, you're going to hear everything with the toe down in the max position. So in this block's case, 24%. So that's the quarter note, and I'll just isolate this. So I'll turn off the pitch and the plex. Fairly basic standard kind of ambient stereo kind of delay sound. So then the pitch block, this is giving us that reversed glitchy spliced sound, and I'm utilizing the crystal echoes type to do that, shifting it up to 12, so the octave there, feedbacks at 60.5, levels at 51.7, and then for the voice 1, it's a quarter note time tempo there. Voice 2, there is no pitch shift, that's quarter note as well, 61.6 on the feedback. These are probably fairly standard to the crystal echoes. If you just pull up the stock, I've only tweaked things a little bit. Levels at 49.3, and then the mix is at 34.1 with the toe down at max. The min is 13.7. Then in the splice page, I've got the splice 1 and 2 both set to quarter notes there, diffusion's at 10%, diffusion time at 50%. Really importantly, the direction is set to reverse. No modulation here. Master section, everything's stock, and the feedback type is both. And that's given us, if I isolate that, that crystally kind of echoey, glitchy reverse splice thing. And then there's a little bit of cascading at the end. That's the thing that's really hard to do. Maybe like Leon or Todd or someone a real ninja could kind of get it much, much closer than me, but I couldn't quite figure out how to get it sort of cascading at the end. And then finally in this, we have the Plex delay block. And this is a really cool block. It gets you everything from just sort of modulated sounds to reverb type sounds to delay sounds. It's so cool, the Plex delay block. I'm using here in, something I've forgotten. So also in this master bit here for the pitch block, I've got the low cut quite up at 425 there hertz, and then the high cut at 9,305. That's going to become more relevant as we move into the second variation. I think it's the high cuts where things really kind of make a difference. So we'll go into the Plex delay block now. This is a really cool block. It's really versatile and useful for giving you modulation sounds, reverb sounds, delay sounds. Super powerful actually, and beautiful sounds you can get with this. So I'm using the Plex shift type, and then reverse again for the direction. That's important. Again, so we've got sort of high cuts and low cuts going on. Well, no real low cut, but the high cut here at 7108. Input diffusions at 50%, 4 delays, decay time. You can see the settings on the screen. I'm not going to go through everything in hyper detail here. Like I say, you can download the preset if you want it. In the time setting though, these are quite important. If I play this in isolation, this is what's given us the shimmery kind of icicles, not the sort of glitchiness, but the shimmer nature to it. That's balanced a little bit lower in the mix, so I've got this at 15.4 in the toe down position at max, and then 4% in minimum. Just will say in the pitch page here, they're both delay 1 and 2 are up at 12, and then the others are at 0, so it's an octave up on the 1 and 2. They're panned as well a little bit. I've not really touched this. This will be just mostly stock settings from the Plex shift type. So if we turn all the blocks on and play with variation 1, we get this sound. What I'll do now is switch between the original hardware timeline in scene 1 and the FM3's effects on scene 2 of variation 1. Okay, so here is the original timeline. And the FM3. Timeline. FM3. Now let's take a look at the preset that I've created on the HX Stomp to get this Strymon icy sound. If you're just joining us at this point, welcome. If you don't have an FM3 and you're just watching the HX part, welcome. I will say up top that I don't think this is quite as close a recreation as I've got with the FM3. And I think that's partly what could just hands up, cards on the deck, could just be me. I'm just not enough of an HX ninja to do it. Maybe like Cordy or somebody could get much closer than this. But I do feel like this is as good as I can get it, so it might be my limitations. But also I do feel that the HX, the Helix kind of platform, I think algorithmically, just some different design choices and sound design. And then also a big thing I think with the HX Stomp, limiting factor is the DSP. I'm having to make some decisions that I know aren't as accurate, and you'll see as we walk through the preset, but that's just limitations with DSP. It's amazing how much it can do and just how far this Stomp has come with its updates that it can even get this close, I think. And it's a really cool sound still, as I think you'll hear. I think it's a really cool sound. It's just not as, I think, icily accurate as I think the FM3's got. So we're going to do this in HX Edit, as I say, with the screen capture, and I'll walk you through the preset. We're not going to do a full build, again, just to save some time. But like I said earlier on to the FM3 guys, if you want to get the preset and load it into your HX unit, then yeah, check the description below and it'll be linked there. So just as I did with the FM3, I've put the physical hardware timeline unit into the effects loop of the HX Stomp. I've set up 3 snapshots so that I've got the HX Stomp's recreation, its HX Stomp effects on the one, and then on the other snapshot, it's got the actual timeline in the effects loop and the HX Stomp effects are turned off, but I'm still utilizing the amp and cab of the HX Stomp. Anyway, let's dive into HX Edit and get started. So I'll just go left to right through the chain here. So input block, as always for me, the input Z setting must be at 1 megaohm. That's an absolute must for anything I do with the HX. Otherwise, we run into rubbery slippage. So that's set there. No gate. I never use a gate unless I absolutely have to. And then I've got just a basic deluxe compressor block. You can just grab the settings if you want. This is air apparent. So like I was using the King of Tone on the FM3, got the King of Tone here as well. Then I'm utilizing similar kind of vibe as I always do, so kind of Dumbly kind of litigator, similar kind of clean tones that I always use on the litigator. And the cab block, Greenback 25 is my favorite, and I've got a 4038 ribbon mic, so a bit rounder sound, high cuts at 8 kilohertz. Then got an effects loop block. This is where it's sending it out to the timeline and then coming back in. That's turned off for this snapshot here, for snapshot 1. This is HXMU emulation. And then we've got the main blocks we're going to look into and dig into in detail here. So we've got the main core delay. So we've got the main quarter note. I'll just isolate these in turn. So we've got the quarter note delay. That's providing the backbone of the main delay sound that then interacts with the, I've got a glitch delay block, and then I've got a shimmer block stereo. These are all stereo, apart from the core one. Don't have enough DSP to get stereo there, but it is modulated. We'll go through the actual settings in just a moment. So that core delay is in mono. So here's the core delay tone again. Here's the glitch on its own. So you can hear already some key differences there. And then the shimmery kind of bed. And then putting all that together, turning these on for this snapshot 1, we get this. So if I compare that with the actual timeline, we get, here's the timeline. HX Stomp. Timeline. HX. So it's not a million miles away, but there are some clear differences and not quite as close as the FM3. Still a really cool tone though, and I think, it's amazing that the HX Stomp can do that. So let's now dive into the settings of these main blocks and see what's going on. So starting with the core delay tone, this is the Adriatic delay. It has to be mono because we're out of DSP at this point in the way that I've decided to set this up. Quarter note sync, feedback's at 50, noise at 3.6. It's on the 4096 for the chip size, and the mix is toe down, maximum at 24%. And then it's got some modulation on it a little bit, so 0.3 and then 2 of rate and 2.2 depth. Maybe you want to put the headroom all the way up if you're getting any sort of clippings or whatever, but I haven't today. And the trails are on just so I can nicely spill between when I switch between the real timeline and the HX. So going on to the next block, so another delay block. This is stereo this time. This is glitch delay. Note sync here is now a half note. The delay division is 4. Got the mix toe down at 18% max there. The feedback's at 13. And then all these other settings, I've spent so much time sort of like really trying to get into the weeds, seeing if I could recreate it, figure out exactly what they do. So much of the line 6 stuff is it's opaque. It's like a lot of the fractal is very specific, hyper detailed, but it's very specific, and you kind of can dig into the nuts and bolts. The Strymon is completely just vague, just like long, short, smear, whatever. This is somewhere in the middle where I think it's trying to be useful information, but it doesn't. I find it hard to kind of really make heads or tails as to what things are doing, and just when I think I understand it and I make the change setting, it doesn't do what I'm expecting. So I've just kind of gone down the middle here at 48-50% for everything. So for the shuffle, pitch, reverse, sequence drift. You can go into the manual and read all this. I've done that several times, and I just don't think I'm smart enough to really translate what I'm reading on the page to what my ears are hearing as to actually make anything useful out of it. In terms of understanding, it sounds great, and I think it's really creative. You can be really quick and creative with it, but I just couldn't explain what's going on. So, slice feedback at 25, and then the shuffle, so how much it's sort of shuffling while it's slicing around at 48. Pitch, how much it's going to throw around the pitch is at 48. Reverse, how many of the slices and it's shuffling and pitching it is it going to reverse, and then how much is all of that going to change over time with the sequence drift. That's roughly what things mean. Smoothing all the way up at 50%. Want to try and get that smoothing out some of the artifacts. The interval 1 is 0 here, and then interval 2 is up the octave, and then I've got the high cuts and low cuts going on. So 137 low cut and 6.2 high cut. Trails again are on. Level, I've just got that at 0. That's fine. And then finally, we've got the shimmer, the reverb block. So this is the stereo reverb block here, and the shimmer effects and the kind of sort of spacious kind of shimmery things are perhaps lacking in the Helix still compared to the other units, certainly to the Fractal. A little bit more glitching, a little bit more artifacting in a non-desired way, non-desired glitching. But it's come a long, long way, and it's way better than I think the original legacy effects. So the shimmer and the dynamic plate and things are really, really good now. So settings-wise, I'm using the Sheen. Pitch 1 is octave up. I'm actually subtly putting in a fifth here, so +7 semitones on the second pitch. Intensity 90%, feedback at 90%, mix at toe down, maximum 30%. The blend between pitch 1 and pitch 2, it's kind of leaning more towards the first one, so 75% of the blend is going to be of pitch 1. We've got 4-second decay time, pre-delay at 150, the largest room size at 30 meters, damping at 5 kilohertz. That might be something to play with actually and bringing down in the future. I'm just thinking out loud for myself now to try and tame something high. Diffusion up at 70%, it's quite important. Motion at 3. I was playing with the motion, bringing that back and forth, because I think that can sometimes have a bit too much like nasty artifacts with the shimmer on the Helix stuff. But yeah, sometimes taking it all the way out, then you just kind of lose the whole thing. And then low cut at 120 hertz and high cut at 5.5 kilohertz. Trails again are on. I'll just play that one more time in isolation. So I've definitely heard worse shimmers on devices and effects, but yeah, it's not quite as seamless and as sort of beautifully, aesthetically pleasing, I think, as the others. So yeah, putting all that together with all the things turned on, now got... And I'll just switch between them one more time. So Timeline, HX. Okay then, I think we're done for the day. This has been really good fun, and I'm glad I've spent the time in digging into this. It's not like bang on, but I think it's as close as I'm going to get without really falling down the rabbit hole. So yeah, what do you think? Do you like the sound? And you know, how close do you think I got? If you want to get the presets, they'll all be linked in the description below if you want to try it out on your devices. And what are some of your favorite delay pedals? I mean, is the Timeline on your list? Is there anything else that you would put ahead of it now? Yeah, what else is current? I know there's a lot of things that I'm not aware of, so if anyone's got any big what's the latest delay hotness, then yeah, let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a like, maybe subscribe to the channel. All the support really helps. If you want to go the extra mile and support me, then you could consider picking up my app, Solo, for learning to visualize the fretboard. I've also got courses and tutorials on visualizing the fretboard and pathways to jazz and all that on my website and on the 2pointsystem.com. And yeah, all the links for my wares are in the description below. And until next time, thanks for watching.